listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. Thank you for joining us. Our hope is for you to be encouraged and to connect with God during this message. If you'd like to know more about Thornapple Valley Church, visit tvcweb.com.
Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to life. It's like we've never quite really known it. There's just even though it looks like it's moving in the right direction, there's just so much that's uncertain. I was thinking weeks ago now when I started working on this talk that I'm giving today, what's it going to be like when I give this talk? And the weird thing is, I still feel like I don't know what it is like. It's just that there's so much uncertainty out there. And so I felt like, even though you know this, I just wanted to say it again. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. What you can know is that no circumstances, nothing has ever happened in the history of the world that God stopped being God. He's still God, still loves us, still cares about us. And I know saying it's going to be okay sounds kind of like something trite or just Christian blah, blah, blah. But it's true. I actually believe that we're going to come out of this better as Christ followers. We're going to be more than better. God still really does work everything together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. And I've loved actually how many of you have used during this time, as people do, you've used humor. And I've enjoyed so much of the stuff that I've heard and seen. I thought I'd start my talk, before I get into it, with just a few tweets that actually I read that I thought were really good, of people, how they're dealing with having, well, kind of being cooped up with their kids all the time during this season. And so these were done at different times during the quarantine, but you might enjoy this one. A person writes, "We've been in quarantine for 18 days now, and my 9-year-old has been talking nonstop for 20 of them." I love that, and I think some of us can appreciate that. I like this one too. "Don't underestimate a child's ability to grasp what's happening right now. I discussed the pandemic and social distancing with my 4-year-old, and she's decided to speak 3 inches from my nose instead of the normal 1 inch. And I can see that as well. And then I like this one. "While playing outside, our toddler peed on the side of our minivan. And honestly, it's fine, because it's not like we use it for anything else these days." And some of you are going to totally appreciate this one. "So far," this parent writes, "during quarantine homeschool, all I've taught my kids is about 37 new swear words." I love that one. But this is my absolute favorite. This one's my favorite. This mother writes, "My daughter just maintained eye contact while stuffing her face with the last of my chocolate stash. My husband saw and said, 'Oh shoot,' picked her up and took her into the other room. But he won't always be here to protect her." I love that. And then this last week, I had the privilege of seeing a video of a 3-year-old girl who's part of our church family as she was praying. I believe it was at Easter dinner. And so she's just a sweet, vibrant, full of energy child, and she's doing her head like this. And she said, "Dear Jesus, I love you so much," or something like that. "I love you with all my heart, and thank you," something like, "Thank you for the Easter bunny." But then she went on, and she got more serious, and she said, "And let me know when you die, Jesus, on the cross, I can help you up." Now there is a girl who is connected. I don't know where her connections are, but that's pretty impressive. I can't help but think that this series called Freedom Road is just perfect timing, actually. It's a great reminder to us that even though we can't control the circumstances in the world around us, we can still experience and find freedom no matter where we are or what's happening. We can have freedom in our circumstances. And there's so much to thank God for these days. Come on, there's so much to be thankful for. Are you living with thankfulness? I was thinking about a couple guys in the New Testament. Their names were Paul and Silas, and some of you are familiar with them. At one point, they're out and they're sharing Christianity with people, and they're in a place that's not only not receptive, but it's hostile to the message. In fact, they were kind of attacked, and they were beaten up. And I'll just pick it up, and this is found in Acts chapter 16. It said, "The crowd joined in with the attack against Paul and Silas, and the magistrates," those are leaders, "ordered them to be stripped and beaten with rods. And after they'd been severely flogged," now think about that. Beaten with rods, severely flogged, they were thrown into prison, and the jailer was commanded to guard them carefully. And when he received those orders, he put them in the inner cell and he fastened their feet in stocks. Now just get this. What those guys experienced was horrific. And it was undeserved. They'd done nothing to deserve this. It was a terrible thing. But what I want you to see is not what they were going through. I want you to see what in those circumstances that they did. And that's found in the next verse. And this is what it says about midnight. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Now let's just try to get this picture straight. These guys had just gone through something horrific, been beaten with rods, severely flogged. They're in chains, unfairly in prison, and they're singing praise to God. How nuts is that? I mean, that just seems like insane to me. But this is the thing. Long before the Who's down in Whoville were still singing about Christmas, even though the Grinch had stolen their gifts in the Christmas feast, Christ followers, followers of Jesus, have been singing praise to God in spite of horrific circumstances because they know that God is still God and He is still good, and there is still, even in our difficulties, so much to be thankful for. Amen? So much to be thankful for. And what I want you to notice about this story is that they weren't just singing praises to God so that maybe He would somehow let them out and open the prison doors. And if you read the story, you know that that actually happened. But they weren't doing it for that reason. They were just giving thanks to God because He is good. Because He knew that they would be brought through, that He would take care of them, that He loved them even in the difficulty. See, Jesus followers seem a little weird that way. And I know some of you may not be sure where you're at with God, and I pray that you work through that and you come to a clarity on where you are in a relationship with God. But for those of you who are followers of Jesus, I just got to ask you this question. These days, are you being thankful? Are you giving thanks? Because there's so many blessings in your life, so much to be thankful for. I know you've probably got lots of complaints and things you don't like about all this. But are you giving thanks? Are you being thankful? Are you just saying, not to get anything from God, not to get Him to do something, but just, I love you. I trust you. I'm grateful for what you've done for me. Are you doing that? I'm telling you, in spite of what things look like, I believe with all my heart that God is doing actually good things, amazing things. And we may not see them for months or even years down the road, but that's how God works, because He takes these difficult circumstances and He works in the midst of them. And you know what He's often doing? He's often opening us up and revealing to us things about ourselves that we maybe had been missing, that maybe had, and I mean this happens to the best of us, that we started going off on a wrong trail, and then sometimes in these circumstances, he reveals to us about us what's happening. I was thinking about Peter. If you know the Apostle Peter, you know that he was like seen as the head of the New Testament, the early church as it started. He was like at the top of the heap. And yet at one point he started to get a little off and started to move in a wrong direction. And he had to be called out in front of people by this upstart named Paul. But Paul was right, and Peter knew it. And Peter knew that even though it hurt and was painful, that he needed to see it. See, difficult times will reveal in us, if we're listening and paying attention, they will reveal in us things about ourselves that maybe we have been missing, that maybe we actually need to see. In fact, I've been saying, I think one of the most important things that can happen during this season is that you learn about you. About you. And so I want to ask the same question that I asked last week, and that is, what are you learning about you? What are these difficult, painful circumstances that you may find yourself in as you're cooped up with the kids or as you're frustrated about not working or whatever it is? What is it revealing to you about you? What are you learning? See, one of my big prayers is that as we come near to the end of this season, and we don't know where that's going to be, but that all of us, I'm praying, would engage in something that many call a lost discipline. It's the art of noticing. Not so much noticing everything around us, what's wrong or what's in other people, but noticing what's within us. Being aware of what's happening with me. And instead of just saying, well, I know I act that way, but that's who I am and it can't be changed. Said, no. Seeing it for what it is, acknowledging it, being honest about it, and then leaning into those things that need to change, that need to be different in our lives. So last week we talked about this and how we all struggle at some level with a controlling spirit, or a need to control, and how to deal with it. Now, if you didn't hear the talk from last week, you can watch it, go to our website, or you can hear the podcast. I challenge you to do that because I think it's worth listening to. Now this week I want to take another angle on this, and I want to talk about something along these lines that I think most of us, I actually think it's probably all of us, but most, if not all, that we struggle with, and it's what I would describe as angst over economics. What I mean by that is that we have this fear, this deep concern down on the inside that we're not going to have enough, that we're going to be without, that we're going to lose, that something's going to happen to us. And of course, we struggle with it in varying degrees and levels depending on where we're at and who we are. Of course, there's some people who live much closer to the edge, and so it's a big deal to them. But it's an interesting thing to me because even people, who say, well, I think even though, the market's dented my retirement a lot, I think I'm going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. You would think that the haves wouldn't worry like the have-nots. Interesting thing, though. Actually, often they do. I remember years ago reading an article in a business magazine about a survey done of Fortune 500 CEOs. It was anonymous, and so one of the questions they ask is, what are one of your great personal fears, or what are some of your great personal fears? And they said, like at the top of the list, one of the big things that they were most afraid of was that their money would not be worth as much in the future as it was then. Now just think about this. You know how much these kind of guys, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies make. They got more money than they're probably going to be able to spend in their lifetime. And one of their biggest fears was that it wouldn't be worth as much, that they'd lose some of it. See, the haves often worry just as much as the have-nots, because it's really not about how much you have, it's about something that's happening inside of you. Now, I know some of you are going to say, hey, Jeff, stuff and money, none of that stuff means anything to me. And maybe that's true. Maybe there may be a few people, but I tend to think for most of us, if we are gut level honest, if we're really honest about this, that we would have to acknowledge that there's some of this here. And during the season, actually, we're seeing this kind of thing. It rises up on the inside of us because, well, like the media, they seem to delight, don't they, in telling us how the world's coming to an end and how horrible the economics are going to be in the future. And this isn't just going to be a little while. It's going to go for years and years. My gosh, I'll sit down to read like some online article, and I'm feeling fine when I sit down to read it. By the time I'm done, I'm a wreck. It's like there's this fear, this thing that will rise up on the inside of you. And this is the interesting, the funny part is, it has nothing to do with how much you have now, what you have, don't have it. It really isn't about that. This is an angst that you can have down on the inside, this fear of lack, this spirit of poverty, this thing you have down on the inside. It can be very damaging to your soul. And sometimes you don't even realize you're wrestling with it until you come into circumstances like this where you start to see it kind of rise up. So here's my contention. You take it for what it's worth. You can agree or disagree, and I'm fine with that. I believe that the COVID-19 saga, like every economic downturn that the world has ever known, is revealing in us what I would describe as a spirit of poverty. A spirit of poverty. Not a ghost kind of spirit. It's not like that. It's more of an identity thing. It's this thing down on the inside of me that worries, that feels anxious. It's this underlying fear of lack. Just like the CEOs who had so much, and yet they feared that they might lose some of it. They might not have as much as they have. And to be clear, this is not something that lives on the surface of most of our lives. particularly in a rich culture like America. We have so much, we're so blessed, we got so many things, and so we don't see it on the surface of our lives all the time. It takes times like this where you walk into a store and you see an entire aisle on one side is barren because there's been a run on something, and there's something that kind of rises its ugly head up on the inside. I better get that. I need to have that. So I got to figure out what to do because I might not have enough. And it's in times like this, actually, that we start to see this thing on the inside of us. And what I want you to see is that even when you don't see it, when there's a spirit of poverty, a fear of lack, even if it's way down here, where you really don't see it and you don't even think about it that much, if it's there in you and it's not addressed, it is impacting you. It's having actually a significant impact on your life. And I know some of you go, well, what kind of impact? How is it impacting my life? Well, let's just talk about that a little bit, because even though most of the time it's not seen, it's not at the surface until we hit like a season like this, it's down there. And if you don't face this thing, if you're not honest about it, what happens is it does impact you. I'll tell you, one of the things it does is it causes you to grasp. And this is how sometimes you know that you struggle with this, even in good times, is that you see something, and everybody knows what I'm talking about here. It's like you see something, you go, I got to have that. I got to have that. And you don't need it, and it may be one of those things you can't even afford, you really shouldn't buy, you can't do this, but it's like, I've got to have that. Everybody knows that feeling. Now, where does that come from? Just think about it a minute. You don't need it. And it really doesn't come from a desperate need, and that's going to fill it and make you happy. What it comes from is this underlying thing, often unseen, lying down in us, this fear of lack. If I don't get that, I won't feel fulfilled, I won't have. And so we try to use stuff to fill a void in us that can never be filled by money and stuff. It is a fear of lack, which often doesn't get addressed. So what we do is we grasp, we pull stuff in. We do this all the time. And of course, the more we get, that brings another whole set of problems. Not just that you're in debt and that you can't pay your other bills. Now it's like what my wife calls the burden of ownership, which is crazy because now you got this stuff, you got all this stuff, you got to take care of it, you got to keep it, you got to oversee it, all of that. And so in a very subtle way, what happens is that the more you grasp, the more the stuff, now watch this, because this is so powerful. It's like I see this thing out there, I want this, I've got to have this. And so we reach out to grasp it and we get it, and as we pull it back into ourselves, this is what happens, and this happens so often. This thing isn't just inanimate. There's something in it that as we pull it back, it reaches around and grabs us. And what we thought we own now seems to own who I am. And it happens over and over and over in people's lives. Thus, the great irony in life, the more you grab and get, crazy as it sounds, the less you actually enjoy all that stuff. I know it sounds nuts, but actually, this is very biblical. Let's take a look at this portion of Scripture in 1 Timothy chapter 6. It says, Paul writes, godliness with contentment is great gain. Now just think about that statement. Two things that have nothing to do with stuff and money. Godliness and contentment, they equal great gain. For, he says, we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we'll be content with that. Those who want to get rich, they fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Now notice this next part. It says, for the love of money, not money, but the love of money, it's a root of all kinds of evil. And then look at this. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. This is so powerful. It's one of the great oxymorons in life, and that is that you fight to get something, you grab it, and as you pull it in, it pierces you with many griefs. And the reason you're grabbing it, the reason you're going after it, you're grasping is because you want to fill this need, this fear of lack, this spirit of poverty. You think if I can get more, it will somehow make that, and it won't. It doesn't fix it, it doesn't resolve it. See, more possessions do not make more joy or more fulfillment. it just doesn't work that way. I love how Paul, just a few verses down in 1 Timothy chapter 6 says this, and I hope you can catch the nuance in this. Take a look at it. Verse 17, he says, "Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant or to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God." Now look at this next part. "Who richly provides us with," say it out loud, "everything for our enjoyment." Now catch what he's saying here. This is so powerful. He's not saying he richly makes us owners of it. We reach out and grasp it. He says everything. There's this enormous blessing that comes in your life when you aren't grasping for it. You don't have to own it. You don't have to have the burden of ownership. You just enjoy the everything when you learn to push back the spirit of poverty, the fear of lack, and just say, God's provided everything for my pleasure. And you can enjoy it, and you don't have to be consumed by it. Listen to me. Beware of grasping. And be honest about owning it when you see it crop up on the inside. Oh, I better buy some more of this or that because it looks like it might be out. Beware of that. Number one, that's what it does to you. But I'll tell you another thing it does. Is it causes you to be anxious about tomorrow. And this is something that a lot of people are struggling with right now. They're just, what if, all these things, what's going to happen? How's it going to, I don't know what I'm going to do. How are we going to work out? I'll be honest with you. I struggle with this too. I struggle with all these things, as I think all of us do. So this fear of lack, this makes me feel like I don't know what's going to happen. I'm anxious about tomorrow, so I'm going to grasp. I'm going to grab stuff now. I'm going to bring it all in because here's the deal. The trouble is that once you get it, you think you'll stop feeling anxious about tomorrow? No. Because now that you got it, now you could lose it. This is exactly what the CEOs were fearful of, is that their money wouldn't be as worth as much as it was then in the future because the future is uncertain, so they're anxious about tomorrow. The truth is we can't control what's going to happen in the future. I mean, if everything comes to pass, all the stuff that the media says could happen, I don't think it will, but let's just say it did. You can't fix that. So what are you going to do if that happens? You're going to hoard? You're going to pull it all in and make sure you got yours? Is that who you want to be? You know, I often think about people, I call them, end times people. They fill their basements with stuff because when the end times come, I'm going to make sure I have enough. And I always just want to ask, and if that happens and you're surrounded by starving people and you're looking fat and healthy, what are you going to do then? You're going to shoot them? Is that who you want to be? Actually, Jesus speaks about this, and I think sometimes we need to be reminded of this. This is found in Matthew chapter 6. He says, don't hoard treasure down here. He's talking about on earth where it gets eaten by moths and corroded by rust, or worse, stolen by burglars. Stockpile treasure, he says, in heaven where it's safe from moth and rust and burglars. This is such a huge thing. It's just something to think about, folks. This is what we do. We grasp and we're anxious. This is what this spirit of poverty, this fear of lack does on the inside of us. If we're not honest about it and don't address it in some way, this is what it does. And I'll tell you another thing it does, and I hate this one, is it causes you to miss what you already have. And I just see this so much. I see it in my own life. Sometimes it's like, I just feel like, I just wish I had this because that would make me feel better. And I miss how blessed I already am. And I think a lot of us have just kind of lost sight of that in these days. Don't forget what we read in 1 Timothy chapter 6, that God provides for our enjoyment everything around us. Don't miss what you already have. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I actually wonder if sometimes we weren't healthier and happier when we had less than we are when we get more. There's something about it that kind of breaks the blessing of God in our lives when we grasp and pull it in and we lose sight of how rich we really were. I remember the pastors of the church that Ann and I went to decades ago before we went into ministry. telling us about the early years of their ministry. They'd actually, when they started ministry, they went into the Appalachian Mountains and they were working with the poorest of the poor. The only trouble was they were part of that group. They just had nothing. They were in poverty. And I remember them looking at us and saying to us that they remembered how close it was for them, how hard they would at night on the back porch just sit and pray for God to bring in food for the next day. And then they looked at us and they said, and I will never forget this, those were the best days of our lives. When they told us all this, they were experiencing the kind of abundance most of us have now. And they were saying those days were the best days of their lives because they said, it's like they were aware of their connection with God, and every meal, every bit of food, all of it tasted so good. See, when you don't deal with the spirit of poverty, with the fear of lack, this thing, it just rises up in you. And you grasp, and you're anxious, and you miss how rich you already are. And I think where we have to start is we have to start by being honest about it, because when you can deal with it, when you can just enjoy the blessing of God, it's like there's a freedom in you, there's a peace in you. And so what I want to do very quickly is I just want to give you 3 thoughts, and I'm going to do this very quick, on how you can stand against a fear of lack, a spirit of poverty in your life. These are simple things, 3 G's they are, and the first one is gratitude. What I would call intentional gratitude. Now, I discussed this last week, so I'm not going to belabor this point. I think you already know how important it is. But choosing to be thankful intentionally, not because we feel thankful, but because we choose to be it, it is so good for us, because what genuine gratitude does for us is that it starts to reveal the beauty around you. Some of you, you've been stuck at home and you're like, this place, it needs remodeling and it's a junky apartment or a house or whatever it is. I hate this. But when you choose, when you say, you know what, instead of letting that rule me, I am going to act with gratitude and gratefulness for what God has done for me. And you start giving him thanks. Thank you for the roof over my head, for the food that we have, for the furniture that we have, for the bed, for the covers, whatever it is. As you start to give thanks, it's as if God takes the thing that you struggle with and think is ugly and turns it in a way that you go, oh my gosh, I am rich. I'm rich, and you are. Gratitude is one of the greatest things you can do to deal with the spirit of poverty, with the fear of lack. And I challenge you to that. Start giving thanks for everything that you have in all the situations. Intentional gratitude, first G. Second G is generosity. And I know this isn't popular, and I'm not going to talk long about this. I won't belabor this one either, okay? But actually, in a time where people are hoarding, I want to challenge you to release some of what you have, to give it away, to give to other people. And I know that it actually seems backwards. This is a time we should be making sure we have enough, right? Actually, in God's economy, this is the way it works. We have been blessed to be a blessing. We've been blessed, God's blessed us so that we might be a blessing. And there's something about giving that opens us up. I've said this, when I give, it opens my hand to receive the blessing of God. The last book of the Old Testament, Malachi, says, bring the whole tithe you're offering to God into the storehouse, the local church. And part of what that does, it tells us in that portion of Scripture, is that it causes the windows of heaven to be opened and the blessing of God to come into our lives. I challenge you. I don't know what your circumstances are. I challenge you. Give. And you don't have to do that. But I will tell you this. In my life, I have regretted times of hoarding. But in the long run, I have never regretted being generous. Never. And I challenge you to be a person of generosity. So 3 G's, gratitude, and then giving. And then the 3rd G is God, of course. I didn't save it for last because it's 3rd place. It's most important. I'll just say this to you. I don't know what you're facing, but the thing that you need to go, whatever you're dealing with, the place you always need to go to first and last is in your connection with God. Do you have that? And maybe you're struggling with great fear. I don't know if we'll have enough. I could starve. All these things. I could lose my house. I'm telling you, go to God. You want to be grateful and you want to be generous, but make sure first you go to God. Do you have that connection with Him? Do you have a relationship with Him? This is what I want to say. You can. Maybe you knew God at one point, but you've wandered away, and now you realize, I need to come back. You can do that. You can do that right now, wherever you're at, in your home, on a walk, somewhere, whatever you're doing, you can do that right now. You can give your heart to Christ. You can come back to Him. And if you want, why don't you just join me in prayer right now? So just pray something like this. God, I don't even understand it all, but I sense you speaking to me. And so I ask you to forgive me for making a mess of it. Just say that to Him. I ask you to forgive me for making a mess of it and come into my heart and take charge of my life. Just tell Him that. I give you my heart. Tell Him that. Come into my life and be Lord of my life. I give you my heart. And if you prayed that prayer, now we pray, all of us who are followers of Jesus, we pray for those who have made a decision for Christ, that they would know you, God, better and better day after day. They would grow in that, and they would see freedom from a spirit of poverty, freedom from a fear of lack, and that they would experience your great love and your great joy. And we trust you to work in their lives. And all of us who are followers of Jesus together, we all just say, yay, God, for people making decisions for Christ. Now, for those of you who made a decision for Christ, we would love to have you connect with us in some way. If you'll see it at the bottom of the screen, you can text one word, TVC Hope, to 77948, and we will connect with you. We will get back to you, and we will help you in any way we can. Let us know you made a decision for Christ. Or maybe you say, I am a follower of Jesus, but I need somebody to pray with me, or I need help in this area. We don't have all the answers, but we will connect you to resources. We will do anything we can to help you. So text TVC Hope to that number you see on the screen, and we'll make a connection with you and we'll support you. And now may you experience the blessing of God. May you find joy in your apartment or home. May you find a sense of pleasure in life around you. May God's face shine upon you. Because in the end, what we know is all we need is God. All we need is you.
Thank you for listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. If you found this message encouraging, we invite you to share it. For more information, visit tvcweb.com.